Hi, my name is Tiffany, and for the informative speech topic that I was assigned a current political issue in the state of Washington, and I chose reproductive rights and or abortion. So, living in America, we are sold the idea that America is the land of the free and opportunity, but as we see, it is not. A good example of this is in June of 2022, Roe versus Wade was overturned, which took the reproductive rights of women in America. It is crazy to think that in the year of 2022, America is still telling women what they can and cannot do with their own bodies. In this speech, we will go ahead and go over why Washington should remain a pro-choice state, and the history of reproductive rights in Washington and the current impact Roe versus Wade is having on the state of Washington. Let's go ahead and first start off with what is Roe versus Wade. So Roe versus Wade guaranteed the right to the privacy under the U.S. Constitution of the 14th Amendment, which protects individual privacy, which includes the right to an abortion prior to fetal viability. In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned this, which meant each state had the right to choose whether abortion is legal or not. So you may be asking yourself, is abortion legal in the state of Washington? So yes, having an abortion in the state of Washington is legal, meaning women in America have access to an abortion up until before viability. Viability is determined by your primary care provider or the provider who will be doing the procedure on you. And it all depends on the current development of the fetus. So it's not marked off at X amount of weeks. It just depends on how along and developed the fetus is. So let's go ahead and talk about Washington State on the current political issue. So Washington has always been on the right side of history for women's reproductive rights. In the article from the Seattle Times, The History of Abortion Rights in Washington State, we learned that Washington was one of 10 states to legalize abortion before Roe versus Wade was even in effect. Another example is in 2018, Washington also put into effect the Reproductive Priority Act, where insurance is required to cover maternity care and abortion care. Now that we know a little more about the history of abortion care in Washington, how is this a political issue in the state of Washington? So since the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and Washington being one of the states to legalize abortion, we are currently seeing an influx of patients from different states come to Washington to receive this care. Specifically on the eastern side of Washington, that border Idaho. So Idaho and Montana are two states where abortion is illegal. So we are currently seeing them come to Washington to have abortions. So what does this mean? How is this a problem? So with the influx of patients coming from different states, we are seeing that impact having to hire more physicians that will perform this care. We are also seeing that with all these patients come to Washington, people are having to wait longer times to have their abortion, which is causing a big problem because the longer you wait, the longer you are no longer eligible to have an abortion. So for example, if you are 10 weeks pregnant and you come to Washington to have an abortion, the wait time can be up to 2 weeks to have a procedure done, depending on how far along you are. So you will have to wait 2 weeks, and then now you're at 12 weeks. And if your fetus has developed even more and the provider no longer determines that you are eligible, then you are ineligible to have an abortion, and now you will have to have the baby. Another part that we have here is that a lot of Washington State hospitals are Catholic based. So For example, CHI and Providence, they are based off of Catholic beliefs, meaning they don't necessarily perform those procedures. Um, so you will have to look outside of your current primary care provider and go to, for example, Planned Parenthood, which already has very limited resources and or providers. Um, so once again, also limiting the amount of people that can have access to abortions, and just an influx of a lot of patients waiting to be seen. We are also seeing that although you are able to come to Washington to have an abortion, and it is legal here, it does not mean that it is legal for you to leave your state to come to Washington to have an abortion. And since this Roe versus Wade was recently overturned within the last 2 years, it's kind of a like gray area where providers don't have a lot of knowledge as to what is legal and what is illegal to be done. We've seen examples of this where women have left the state of Texas to go to different states to have abortions, and then later are being sent to jail for it. So in conclusion, it is very important for all states to have access to legalize abortion, and all women to have access to abortions, because without it, you are having just an influx of patients traveling to different states, people going to jail for trying to fight for their own reproductive rights, lack of access for patients.